please welcome the CEO of Amsterdam&Partners, Geerte and the CEO and founding partner of Group Now, Signe Jungersted, and the managing director of Llubljana Tourism, Petra Stušek, and the head of sustainable tourism for Visit Valencia, Jaume. In conversation with Skift senior research analyst, Wouter Geerts.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is a great session, but you are four very knowledgeable panelists with a lot to talk about, and we only have 25 minutes. So before we start, I want to put down some ground rules. We're going to talk about three main themes today, and I'm going to put a multiple choice question at your feet for each of the themes. And I understand it's going to be hard, but I want to have an A, B, or C answer, and then we'll talk more about sort of your thoughts. So the first theme that I want to talk about is travel as a growth industry. I think travel is a growth industry, or at least it's always been, obviously, until 2020. This slide, I think, really puts it into perspective. There's been slight setbacks. There's been major economic downturns and things like that. Travel tends to always go up. Obviously, COVID has had a major impact on the travel industry, unlike anything else before. So my first question to you, and it will also be a question to the audience, is will international travel volumes come back and surpass pre-pandemic levels? So your first option is yes, already now for some destinations in 2021. B, yes, it will take a few years. Or C, no, international travel will never again see the volumes and growth it has done over the past decades. So, Petra, let's start with you. What do you think?
Well, hi everyone first, and thank you for having me. Well, I don't know. I do know. Just a few months ago, I would say number one, because I'm, by nature always optimistic, and I actually did believe that. But with the threat of the fourth wave and the fact that the crisis is as much political as it is a health crisis, I would say recovery expected up to 2024, so B. But probably on different grounds, not the same as pre-pandemic level, or because already now we are all at the sustainability cautious, so yeah. Different grounds.
Cool. Jaume, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I would say also B. Number two, it will take a few years, maybe more time than we expected. The pandemic is constantly changing, evolving. So it's one surprise after another surprise. So we expected summer 21 will be okay. Then we've seen now the fifth wave coming. So let's see if the markets will remain open or we will close again our borders, etc. So we can't expect nothing faster than 1-2 years to get back all this confidence and all these people back to our destinations.
Yeah, I think for those of our audience that are joining from outside of Europe, you're really picturing the situation in Europe at this point. If people in America might not understand, Geerte, do you have other views on this, or are you also a B person?
Well, it's easy to say that it's answer A if this is the last Delta change and then it's over and all the vaccinations will work. It's B if we have several ones, and it will be C if this pandemic grows bigger than we expect and hope.
Yeah.
All right, and Signe, what do you talk to a lot of obviously different tourism boards? So what is your view on this?
I think I'm gonna go with the Harry Potter version of like B and 2/3. I think that tourism will return or at least start to grow again. I don't think we will see it come back in the same shape and form as it was. There will be some deep structural changes. This is not just the pandemic crisis. This is also a hybrid crisis. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But we see some changes in terms of like just business travelers, if we take that as an example, and the lack of business travel that we see and how much longer that will take to come back, as you say, that will influence the airlines and connectivity and so on. So I think this is really sort of a deeper structural shift that we see. So I'm going for B and 2/3.
All right, interesting. I mean, it sounds like all of you do feel that international travel probably will come back. Geerte, I do want to not pick on you, but I want to go to you, I should say, because obviously Amsterdam has had, I guess, quite a turbulent history with tourism, and actually not too long ago, and I'm not exactly sure, was it last week or there was actually an ordinance put into place which now says there should be between 10 and 20 million tourist nights coming to Amsterdam each year. The city has subscribed to the donut economy principle. So, what's happening? How has the idea around tourism volumes changed in Amsterdam before the pandemic, and has the pandemic had any impact on that?
Well, actually, I think that it did speed up the process that we already stepped into. Because of the pandemic, it was much, much more clear that we have areas in Amsterdam where the visitor economy can still uplift the quality of life for the residents. It really showed that we have a lot of areas where we have a perfect balance between people that live there, work there, and visitors that can enjoy our city as well. And it showed that the negative effect of the tourism industry was really mainly in our city center, because there are not enough people living and working there anymore, and the amount of visitor pre-pandemic was overloaded. So that was there it was also in the COVID time, you saw the negative effect of a too strong tourism industry. So it actually just highlighted the issues we were facing already, and it did speed up the process because it gave us time, awkwardly enough maybe, to step back a little bit, businesses, cultural institutions, experts, and residents along, to say like, okay, if we come out, what is a healthy visitor economy that adds value for residents, businesses, and can welcome everybody in the world that also loves to join our city for a while.
Yeah, sure. And we did the audience poll, and they seem to all agree with you, and B is the main comes out the strongest here. So Petra, I just want to turn to you, because we spoke earlier, and I understand that especially for Ljubljana, it is quite important that international travel comes back. Can you tell us a little bit about how important international travel is to the city, and sort of what you've done to try and negate the fact that there just aren't any international tourists anymore?
Yeah, it is actually of vital importance, because pre-pandemic we had 97% of foreign overnight stays, not so less than 5% of domestic. I mean, we're talking about a small country, so everyone can go back home, but still, not only Slovenia or Ljubljana, no country can actually in longer term survive on foreign tourists only. And especially in the case of our capital city, the tourism gives bread to not only individuals but the whole family and families, and number of companies. It's 13% of GDP of the whole country in tourism in general. But the fact is that no new infrastructure or no number of investments has decreased during the last year. So we strongly believe that the tourism sector will go back. Right now, we are, the number of overnight stays of foreigners are rising, so it gives us, of course, the optimism. But we don't know what will happen in fall. But guess what? Nobody does. So we're all in the same boat, and we're just quickly adapting, and that's our everyday life now.
Yeah, sure. I said at the beginning, this is going to be a fast-paced session. We're going to go to the next theme. We need to move on. I want to talk a little bit about climate change, sustainability. That's the talk of today, or the theme of today. And I think sustainability tends to be spoken, obviously, in three different pillars. And I really want to sort of know what element of sustainability your destinations have predominantly focused on over the past 5 years. Is that economic sustainability? Is that more environmental sustainability? Or are you looking more at the social and cultural aspects of sustainability? So once again, let's start with you, Petra. Where has Ljubljana mostly focused?
Well, the usual answer is everyone started at environmental, but actually for us it goes that it's the mix of all three. It's not possible to extract predominantly one, because the mix of environmental, like deliberately spreading the flows outside of the city center, which we really were successful in doing prior to pandemic, and social sustainability. Let's say we are, as a tourist board, we were working really strong on the cultural districts that would appeal to locals. That's in such a small city as ours is something really unique to do. So the mix of both led to interesting, fresh, unique practices, and that all led to, of course, economic sustainability, and the most important thing, the economical growth of tourism in Llubljana, the organic growth of tourism in Llubljana. So the locals stayed happy with the development all these years prior to crisis.
Yeah, sure. I love your answer, but you're terrible at answering multiple choice questions. Jaume, what is your view on this?
Well, our city was quite happy with tourism. So we did our research, and our residents answered that they are happy prior to the COVID, and now they want the tourists to come back. So social wasn't the issue. And economic sustainability, where we were growing in all the economic terms, in average stay, expenditure, etc. So we focused on B, on environmental sustainability. That's why we mainly focused on water management, which is quite an issue here in the Mediterranean, and the greenhouse emissions.
Yeah, cool. I'll come back to that in a second. Geerte, where has Amsterdam focused mostly?
Well, I cannot make it any different than also going by them all. Sorry, Petra, I always follow you. No, but what I do believe is if you are in the co-creation session, it really helps to also make very clear by examples how environmental and social cultural sustainability can also add on to the economic sustainability. So that is what we really focused on the last year, because of course a lot of our partners, commercial and cultural, are in deep trouble. So if you want to change things and have a long-term vision for the coming up 5 next years with the donut economy, you have to help them out where the economic benefit is as well, so they recover in a much more healthy way.
Interesting. Signe, for you, I want to spin it a little bit. You work with a lot of DMOs. I guess the COVID pandemic sort of has a clear cause, it has a clear way to manage it, hopefully. and so there might be a bit of an ending coming in sight, right? Climate change doesn't really have a single solution. It doesn't have a clear end goal or path to get there. So how do DMOs sort of approach this? I mean, we've heard these different pillars and how they're interrelated, but how do you start with really thinking about this? It's such a big topic.
It is a really big topic, and I think we've seen for many years how DMOs and destinations, not just the DMOs, but destinations, have been struggling with the complexity of that problem, but also in giving it meaning in terms of the work that they're doing. So actually making it quite concrete in terms of what does it mean that we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. And I think one of the things that we've seen during the pandemic, and maybe also sort of the pause for reflection, is that there is an increase in coming together to find solutions. And I think that's one of the sort of key findings coming out of the pandemic, that we won't be able to solve these major issues coming at us if we go at it alone, or if we go at it as a competition even. The collaborative advantage of going together in coalitions and sharing and learning whatever works, solutions, sharing best practice is really, I think, the way forward, because these are complex issues. And I think one of the things that we're also starting to realize now is that following a climate crisis, we have multiple other crises following that are of a social and a political character, that are of biodiversity and so on. So we have really multiple crises coming at us, and just let alone these past 3-4 weeks, we've really been confronted with massively high temperatures with flooding and so on. So I think it's becoming more and more concrete that we do need to take action. And so now DMOs are trying to translate that into action that is meaningful also in terms of their work and their kind of organization.
Yeah, sure. And I think everyone on this panel has done some very concrete work. I want to just go back to Jaume, because you mentioned some of the work you've done when it comes to the environmental aspects. Can you just talk a little bit about how hard it was to set up the projects that you did, and sort of what the outcomes of this were?
Right. Well, and just in a few words, we tried to help our stakeholders to work towards to mitigate the climate change. So we have designed a digital system, which is based on a platform which we have calculated the carbon footprint. So we already have the base, and now we want to escalate to give all the stakeholders the responsibility. They already know how much they have to reduce, how much they have to compensate, even the city, the public services. So we want to deploy the system now to interact with the tourists. So we will be able to inform them and to register and to motivate them to change their behavior. So the carbon footprint and very soon also the water footprint will be reduced by the own tourists. So that's an action to motivate and to involve all of them.
I think it's a great example of some of the concrete work that destinations are doing, for sure. You mentioned stakeholders there. It's our final theme. It's going really, really rapidly. We're almost out of time already. It's crazy. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about understanding how important, like Signe says as well, partnerships, collaboration. How much of your day-to-day work, this is a bit of a cheeky question, but how much of your day-to-day work is spent on communicating with your stakeholders? Is it your entire job? Is it about half of your day? Or are you trying to keep it as little as possible because you've got other things to do? Geerte, let's start with you today. Oh, Geerte is sorry.
Yes,
say that again, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I think it's almost A plus B. Is that possible? No, I have a very great team, luckily, with me. So I do other things as well. But I think it's absolutely important to make the change that we're all really facing and looking for, to connect all these different parts that make this visitor economy. So the commercial, the cultural, the government, and the residents, and all the people in the whole metropolitan area. And I think DMOs especially are the organizations that know everybody and also can connect them in the right way, so you get practical solution to make it step by step. Because like what Signe already said, it's not to solve this crisis, it's to be prepared for the future that nobody knows exactly what it will be. So yeah, I think it's a very important role for us as DMOs, and especially also, of course, as the director, because it's easier to connect on very different levels. Yeah, and sure. Also on national level and European level.
Yeah, for sure. Jaume, what are your views on this?
Well, I would say, hey, instead of being the head of sustainable tourism, I feel like a Spider-Man, So we are creating all the time these networks and launching these webs to motivate people, to bring them to the team, to let them understand what's the priority for all of us instead of the short term. So I'm a Spider-Man.
Interesting. And Petra, what are you? I know you're also working for the ECM, the European Cities Marketing. So that is a whole other stakeholder job, I'm sure. But tell us a little bit of how busy you are.
That's correct. ECM is my afternoon switch off. Let's put it this way. But actually, I have to stick with my reputation. So I would say mix of A and B, even though I deliberately choose also C from time to time. But honestly, it's, in general, this is my entire job. So in numerous of days, I start answering email after 4 p.m. because I don't have time prior to that. But we are, I have to say, we're really lucky because we have the whole political system behind us, and it really works because from top down, from mayor down, everyone is everyone thinks that the locals are the core of destinations, and that we actually really sincerely believe that locals are the best ambassadors, but of course they're also the worst critics if you're not doing anything wrong. But the fact is, if the locals are happy, so will be all of our visitors. And this is the philosophy we work on, and this is why the locals are basically our core stakeholders, whether they're civilians or, business-wise. So that's it.
Yeah. And Geerte, obviously, I guess in Amsterdam especially, we've seen some of this play out where some people feel like winners from the tourism industry, others feel like losers, I guess. And how does that how do you deal with that? There's so many different stakeholders, like we've already heard. How do you communicate to all of them? How do you use that in your marketing campaigns? And how do you deal with people that might not actually agree with you?
Well, I'm not how do you say that? Somebody with a fairy tale stick that can make everybody happy and agree with each other. What we do is take them back a little step and say, okay, do you want to make a better world for the next generation? There, everybody agrees on. Then the second question is, do you love the destination of the bigger Amsterdam area? Then everybody agrees on. So you first, instead of always focusing on the maybe 20% that you disagree on, we shifted the group mentality and focus on what is the 80% we do like. And without being negative about English people, because they're lovely, but their tech parties are really annoying for a city, and everybody agrees on the businesses, the residents, etc. So it is not such a thing, it's not good for the visitor economy, for the hotels and the cultural institutions either, if it's overcrowded on the street. So it's not that, the way how you solve these issues, you can have a good discussion about it, but that's good. It's good to have heavy discussions. You get the right answer for the right topic, and you really make a solution together. So, and there will be, of course, people that don't agree. There are institutions in the red light district that do love the English tech parties, but that's such a huge minority that it's not, that these are not the people that makes the change. We think you have to invest in the 50% that has the positive view, and then 25-30% will follow, and there will always be 20% on both sides that will not agree. But that's good. You need to have some power against to keep you sharpened.
Yeah, sure. And do the different stakeholders that you deal with, do they understand sort of, if we take it back to the sustainability question, do they understand the need for this measured approach between these, if you want, different pillars that we have, and that it can't always be about economic sustainability or I don't know, Petra, maybe you want to, with your ECM hat on as well, is there, in Europe, is there a growing understanding of what sustainability is and the importance of it for cities?
I would definitely, the answer is definitely yes. But the key word here is now the growing understanding, because in my opinion, or let's say in trends that were prior pandemic, you would see that everyone would be talking a lot about sustainability, learning about it, but not necessarily practice it yet. Now the whole process, is really took a shift and is speeding, and everyone is really keen on going on all three pillars of sustainability, because everyone needs, we're all starting from the same ground, from point zero with this pandemic. It doesn't really matter where do you stand, how big you are. We're all basically in the same situation. So we now all the smaller and the bigger destinations now have the same possibility to thrive, but everyone is talking about the healthier grounds and how locals, but also travelers, need to like the place they're going to. And with overcrowded tourism, that's just impossible to know. And just a bridge to the prior question, if you are liked by everyone, you're definitely not doing it right.
Sure.
If I can add, sorry, but can I?
No, Signe, I actually wanted to give you the last word. So you can answer this question however you want. You can answer the previous question or answer this one now. The session title is "Where do we go from here?" So I just wanted your sort of final thoughts on where are we going from here? What are some of the strategic plans, I guess, that destination will have to focus on in the future?
I think this last question is really a core issue that will also define the future, which is really about also discussing what tourism contributes, the value of tourism in new ways, that both reimagine sort of the role of the DMO in terms of these issues of sustainability, but also the conversation that you need to have with your local community. And I think that's very, very interesting, because stakeholders now is much more broadly defined than it used to be. And so we're no longer, it's not just about do you like or don't like tourism and what are the conflicts around tourism? It's really around what kind of city, what kind of place do you want to live, and how can tourism be a contributor to that? So I think that's a much more interesting conversation, and it's also much more relevant for them to engage with. So I think the accountability and the contribution of tourism, and thereby also the DMO, that's really where we're going.
Interesting. I guess if the pandemic has taught us anything, is that tourism doesn't live in a vacuum, and that's definitely true coming out of this conversation as well. Thank you all very much for your time today, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.